All right, y'all.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Hello. It is Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022, effectively 2/2/2022. And before we get started, I have to say, happy birthday, mommy. I hope you enjoy it. I'm so excited. Like, my mom's birthday is a celebration to me. It's a celebration, everybody. But okay, that's enough about her. It's not her live. It's about me. And of course, my lovely guest that you're seeing here. And I just want to thank everyone for being here, wishing everyone continued prosperity. I'm always going to start like that because I want the best for you. I want the best for me. I want the best for all of us. So now let's get started. It's a girl again, Tech Tie, and I am joined by Teresa Bigelow, who is the founder of Spiral5. And this is like an amazing founder chat because I'm big on entrepreneurship. I'm big on boss babes. I'm big on a lot of things, you know that. But all right, I've done enough talking. Now, please, Teresa Bigelow, introduce yourself to the people.
Yes, I shall. And first of all, happy birthday to your mom. What a
Thank you.
cool 222222. Like, what an auspicious number,
I
truly.
know.
I'm all about numerology, so we can dive into that later. But yes, okay, Spiral 5. So I'm the founder of Spiral 5. I am still a publicist. So I have worked in PR for the last 10 years across tech, innovation, business, most recently mental health, alternative health and wellness, science, biotech, across the game. And then in 2017, I started Spiral 5 as a informal collective, which has now basically evolved into what we are today, which is an incubator for women and some men who are interested in developing freelance PR careers.
Now, I hope y'all caught all of that because we're about to dive in. So, you mentioned Spiral 5 being an incubator. Now, the reason that we are having this discussion is because you want to democratize PR or public relations. And I love that. And, I'm big on, okay, I'm back to my fingers and I'm back to using them. I am big on community. I am big on the career journey transformation personally and professionally. And we're going to get into the whole PR scene. Like, I don't know much about PR or public relations, but I do know that a lot of people are putting their foot in their mouths, figuratively and literally, and talking a lot of, and I make sure that I don't talk too much. So please tell us what public relations is and why it's so important, especially in our day to day lives and society at large in this digital age, and why it like we should really absorb this.
Ooh. Well, it's
Ooh,
a big question. It's a big question because PR is a lot of things. The way that we interact with PR and teach PR is that it's an art, and yes, I said art, an art of communicating and creating dialogue, participating in dialogue, and in general interacting with the world in a way that supports your bottom line as a business or as an artist or creator.
mhm.
And so there is, there's a strategy behind it, and it often takes time to develop that strategy. And then there's, we have multiple channels in which we work with. So those channels could be the journalists. A lot of times it's the media and the journalists. It could be podcast hosts. It could be speaking
Joe
opportunities.
Rogan. Joe Rogan. Sorry.
We won't go into the Are we going to the Jeff Rogan conversation? Because that would be another one that we should do. But yeah, not everyone wants to be on Jeff Rogan's podcast now, but that was a big one that everyone wanted to be on once upon a time. And so we kind of tap into the channels that make sense for whoever it is we're representing. And to your point on, foot and mouth, that's sometimes, I mean, we are behind the scenes kind of developing messaging, and occasionally a
Puppet
client,
master.
yeah, exactly, that's us. We have a lot of times you read an interview, one of us wrote that. And yeah, and sometimes clients, they're in a conversation with a journalist, or it's kind of something, they meet somebody at a party and they say something and it ends up in the news, and it happens. And the best we can do is try and prepare our clients for those tough questions ahead of time so they know how to respond.
Thank you for that. And I just want to highlight the fact that this is live. This is not pre recorded because It's a day after, or maybe it's 2 days now after Rihanna announced that she is pregnant. So I was just like, should I write a press release? And I was like, I'm not a publicist, but should I write a press release? And I'm seeing all these people that are so involved in Rihanna and her pregnancy writing this stuff. And I'm like, people are brilliant. People are brilliant and so funny. So, it's that messaging that someone else wrote, it's someone else styled, someone else, her publicist came up with that one to drop those photos, all of that in the orchestration. And like when I saw that, I was just like, okay, uh, Teresa, the PR maven, like this is so apropos. This
Mhm.
is right on time. So tell us why you started Spiral5.
Well, do you want the long answer or sort of long answer? Because there's layers to it.
Oh, you're a beautiful onion. And that's the second time I've used that because people are beautiful onions. And so
You have used that
surprise
before.
me, surprise us.
Okay. Well, I mean, the simple answer is that it just made so much sense.
Mhm,
Somebody had to do it, and it might as well have been me. But I think like all things in life, there were multiple circumstances that happened
mhm.
that led me to the idea in the first place. And then when I had it, I was like, oh, duh, like why does this not exist? And then in a more cliche answer is it really was something that I just needed at the time. So the original version of Spiral5 was something I started as like a very informal collective. And essentially I had just started my own independent PR practice. And I had, maybe 5 or 6 years under my belt of PR experience. So I knew generally what to do,
Mhm.
and enough that I could bring in a couple clients, but I did not know the business of PR. And so what I did was I just started getting connected to other independent publicists in New York who had more experience. And I would, pay for an hour of their time and just pick their brain on how do you set your rates? How do you send proposals? What do you do to troubleshoot this type of project? And then they became friends, and then that evolved into, we would support each other at events, or we would fill in for each other if somebody needed some time off. And so then I started to formulate this idea of a collective. And the original idea was that and feel free to cut in at any time, but
Oh, please,
the original
please.
idea was that we would, share resources and pay monthly dues to have access to like an assistant that we could all share, or, Cision, or these other kind of expensive media databases. And that kind of was like, everyone was like, that's cool, but like no one was knocking on my door with like the $800 monthly fee, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and so it just remained very casual. We would meet up every quarter for like cocktails and hang out. Then I think the second, like what really kicked off like what Spiral5 is now was a couple of things in 2019. One,
Okay.
I got approached.
Pre-COVID. Thank you
Yes,
for giving us a timeline. Pre-COVID.
pre-COVID, I was really passionate about independent consulting work for women, mostly because as a personal value, freedom, flexibility, having agency over my life is really important. We like one of our taglines is we're not an agency, but we have agency, and it's like there's so much in that. But
I'm
the
sorry,
point,
Teresa, are you a rapper part-time? We're not an agency,
God
we
no,
have agency.
God
Like,
no. Occasionally a poet, but not a rapper.
same
Yeah,
difference.
yeah, well, yeah, it's similar. But we don't want me to start rapping. That we would lose a lot of people.
Next
um,
time.
Essentially, I just realized that there was an opportunity to create a platform for other women like myself,
Yes.
and I, at the same time, started working with like a friend who wanted to learn what I do.
Mhm.
Um, and so I trained her pretty quickly. Like she'd already been an events producer. She knew how to send emails, and I just channeled her skills into PR to help my clients part time. And then I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was another pivotal moment, and realized, okay, like now I have this network.
Mhm.
I know how to train somebody to do PR. What if I created, like, I just made this a formal thing and I connected all of the dots? So you have senior publicists who need part time support for occasional projects. You
Mhm.
have how many millions of women around the country with skills that can be translated into PR. And I was inundated all the time with entrepreneurs, startups, creatives, people who wanted PR, but they couldn't afford a senior publicist or, definitely not an agency. So that was like aha moment right there. Moving to Tulsa was impactful because I wanted to do something that would have been beneficial, that would be beneficial for more rural areas. And so here we are.
I mean, because I have self-control sometimes, I did not want to interject, but you're speaking my love language, lady. First of all, you talked about paying people for their time to pick their brain. I don't have any problem with someone wanting to speak to me, to have coffee, virtual coffee or not. But there is real community and understanding that people's time is valuable, and the jewels that they're giving you, they should be compensated for, and we have certain levels of compensation. And just like I'm always sending gift cards or digital cards and
Mhm.
other things, because I'm grateful, and gratitude is my attitude. So when you started there, I just kind of started to flutter. I was like, and then you talk about community, you talk about connection, you talk about purpose, and you're speaking my love language. And I normally reserve this for LinkedIn, and I will say, LinkedIn, I love you, but Teresa, I appreciate you coming up with a solution, you wanting to create community, and you starting and letting that grow, and thinking about your impact. So you mentioned pre-COVID 2019, you were a New York City, big city publicist. I don't know why I raised my voice and had to do that little bop, but big city publicist. And then now leaving the city and migrating west and wanting to make sure that you had impact in this rural community. So where are you currently based right now? Where are you live from? I'm in Brooklyn. Keep it down out there. You talking to me, forget about it. Sorry. The
I love
neighbors.
it. I was just in Brooklyn. Was it last week? Yeah, I was in Brooklyn last week. I'll be there again next week. So I'm kind of in between right now. But I am currently sitting in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Nice. And
Mhm.
why Tulsa? Why are you, well, not bi-coastal, but why is Brooklyn and Tulsa your cities? Because those are very, I don't want to continue to use impactful, but Brooklyn has a very specific dynamic for those of you who have ever been to New York and understand that Brooklyn, okay, I gotta take it down a notch. I'm sorry. It's that born, raised, and based. Like it's very different, and it has its own culture, it has its own vibe, everything. And Tulsa is well known, and it seems like it's growing in terms of a tech hub, and in the community that is being built and bolstered there, and it has a long-standing history. So why are those your bases?
Ooh, yeah, I love this. I love talking about Tulsa because there's some really cool stuff happening here. So I originally moved here with a program called Tulsa Remote,
Mhm.
and they in 2019, clearly a big year,
Mhm.
they realized that hey, we're kind of a cool city, just people don't know about us, and how many remote workers are out there? Again, pre-COVID, so
Mhm.
they were clearly kind of ahead of the curve, and they realized hey, we could probably pay people to move here. Tulsa is also like one of the most philanthropic cities in the country. So there are
Yes.
several family foundations with deep
Yes.
pocket that have taken it upon themselves to invest into the community. So to put things in a perspective, the first year they brought 80 of us here. I was one of the first 80. I like to say that I was an OG. And then in 20 by what is it 2022 now? They've moved like almost 1,000 people here. They've paid 1,000 people $10,000 to move
Wow.
to Tulsa. And just to put things into perspective, like all of these people, not all of them, but most of them are now participating in the community. They're buying homes. Um, yeah, the house I'm sitting in right now, my brother and I bought. Like it's been a real cool journey to watch the city grow in the last couple of years. And yeah, and I think that part of what has really caught the eye of like the national stage as
Mhm.
well is a lot of energy around the tech hubs.
Yes.
They have Atento Capital is here. They're moving startup capital, a startup venture is here. There's a lot of programs and a lot of energy around getting people here to create.
I love it. And thank you to Patrick Kazadi. He's my homeboy. He's actually a friend and colleague of mine. We met in college. Well, I was an undergrad and he was a grad when we were at the University of Nebraska Lincoln, UNL, Cornhuskers. So that when I was in college was when I got a chance to be exposed to the growing and developing community in Tulsa because we weren't too far away in terms of the state and the proximity. So, Oklahoma has been doing big things, and it's great to now speak with someone who is a beneficiary of that philanthropy and could let us know about the growth in the tech space and the hub and the community and the support around making that more of a giving that more of a national identity. So shout out to that program, and hopefully if there's anybody interested, we could definitely talk about that later, or you could reach out to Teresa and we're going to talk about that. So now I really want to get into a bit more. You mentioned the genesis of the program. Where do you want to go? What you talked about the first phase and then
Mhm.
like the second phase of it. Where are you now that the program started in 2018 and we're now in 2022, 5 years later? What phase are you in and where do you want to grow?
Mhm.
And what impact do you see this amazing program that trains people to be entrepreneurs? And I really want to get into that, about the fact that you get these skills, but these are skills that are not only going to impact your community but impact you, and because it's a lifestyle, like I'm
Yeah.
so excited about that. It's a lifestyle business. It's not going into this corporate space,
Mhm.
whether okay, I asked you a question and now I'm starting to answer it. And that's not how I do. So let me pull back.
No, but I love it. I love your answer. Keep going. Uh, yeah, all of that. I mean, so it was such a it's a complex ecosystem, and it took a
Mhm,
lot of time to get my bearings and figure out each piece and
mhm,
how that was going to fit, and then also, from like a personal development, just have the confidence to go out there and make it happen. And like, there's so much learning, right? Like, we've had tons of little micro failures. I want to shout out the fact that I had 5 other women help create this course with me. So we started that in 2020. It took us 6 months to build a like 60 section course. There's 60 different videos on from everywhere, everything from how to pitch the media to then what we call PR Pro 101. So, the fundamentals of building your
mhm,
business as a publicist. So I had help, and we started that in 2020, and then we kind of initially launched it as an online training, as a course that people could buy into the
mhm.
cohort in the spring of 2021. And it just, like, didn't feel right to me, and so by the end of the year, like, it felt like I was suddenly selling courses, which wasn't really what I wanted, and so all of, like, these pieces that I had been trying to weave together for the last couple of years really started to land this past fall 2021,
Okay.
when I kind of just shifted away from being a course sales business and became an incubator, where it was an application based. You're allowed into the incubator based on your application, $0 up front, and then we share revenue on the other side of your training.
Ooh.
And the reason I did that was because in our beta, so we had a beta, and it was working really well for a few of our starter publicists.
Mhm,
And one of our starter publicists had like 6 clients at one point, and 4 of them were through Spiral5's network. But she was paying a monthly fee. And I was like, you know what? Make the monthly fee lower. Let's have this be a recruiting fee. So now we share revenue based on the number of clients, and it doesn't matter how many starter publicists I have. What matters is how many clients I'm bringing in. And that's a whole different model, and it just makes so much more sense to me. And
how
so
cooperative. That is a commune. That's a cooperative. That is an
we're we are
incubator. That
we are an
is
all freelance.
outstanding.
Yeah, we're an all freelance PR agency with multiple budget levels, and then we incubate people at it's a talent, we're a PR talent agency at the same time. So I'm thinking about my starter publicist every time I'm having like a new client call. And I'm like, oh, this would be good for this woman, and this would be good for this guy. And I'm matching them with people. And it's still picking up, but of course, from a goals perspective, like, I would like this to grow into being, multi 7 figure type of business, but we're not there yet. We're still small.
Um, I just
Mhm.
like hearing about its genesis and where it is. And you talk about micro failures, but what I hear are places and positions to pivot, and make it more equitable and make it more sustainable.
Mhm.
And that is like so exciting. It's very, very exciting. So, can you give us some information? Oh, hello, Maria, a startup publicist, and she loves this. I want to shout out Maria because I just saw her comment. Hey, Maria, thank you so very much. And
Hi,
remember,
Maria.
people, we are live. So if you have any questions, any concerns, throw it in the chat. And we want to answer them. Well, not we, because y'all ain't come here for me. Y'all came here for Teresa. But like, tell us about some of the projects from your of all levels of your publicist, from your junior through your senior. Like,
Mhm.
what does this look like, especially since we have a startup publicist in the house?
Yeah. Yeah. And so first I want to kind of like set context around the majority of these women and one or two men. We like to say that, anyone who identifies with the sisterhood. So we're not gender focused, but we're sisterhood focused.
Publis,
So
pubs, list,
the
pub
Public
list
sisterhood.
sisterhood.
Yeah, exactly.
I practiced
Um,
earlier. Can you tell?
it's great. I love it. So anyway, you're totally a public sister, by the way, Ty. Um, you're invited. So essentially, most of these people are actually professionals who are reskilling, which is a term I learned recently, basically through you and Nora from RecruitRise. We're upskilling and reskilling professional skills they already have in
Yes.
channeling it into PR, which I think is impactful because communication, relating, socializing, psychology, a lot of things that women are really actually tuned into that they don't know that they can channel that into revenue. So there's that. So a lot of these women are coming from, Maria comes from a finance background, right? So when fintech companies come along, guess who I'm going to send fintech to? Another one comes from the music publicity world, but she wants to do different types of PR now. So she already has some background experience, and we're just kind of finessing her to be able to take on other clients. Also, the network, which is important. Like when I first realized I wanted to be a freelance publicist in like 2012 when I was 24 years old. I don't know if I might have just aged myself, and I also might have got it wrong. So don't quote me on that.
I like
But in
math, so
2012,
I'm calculating.
in
Continue.
2012, when I realized it's like, oh, I want to be a freelancer, I didn't have the network necessarily to sustain that.
Mhm.
And a lot of people who haven't spent 8 years in New York aren't going to have that like referral flow. And so what we're doing is just trying to jumpstart that. To answer your question about the types of projects, it's like I'm getting like 2 to 3 inquiries a day, and they range from looking for someone to actually do some press relations to internal communications for like 3 or 4 months at a time,
Mhm.
to agencies looking to hire part-time support or even full-time support. So one of my local starter publicists in Tulsa, she's fluent in Spanish and English, and there was an agency who needed support for some clients in Mexico.
A
Um,
bilingual queen after my own heart. Felicidades,
yeah,
mi amor, la reina. Okay, sorry, continue. We
yo,
got some
cute.
public
Keep
sisters
going.
in the house, so I'm gonna throw them up here in a little bit, but please continue.
Yes, yes. Hi, Kashana. Kashana is one of the course creators, so she helped to create the course with us.
Shout out Kashana. Thank you so much for being here. Sorry, you were
Yeah.
saying about the
Oh,
bilingual
I don't
queen that
even
was
know.
helping out with a press release or clients in Mexico.
Oh, yes. So she's now joining that agency on like a contract basis, and this all happened in like in the last few weeks. So I feel like we're like not like last year was beta, now we're launched, but we're like early launch. So
Mhm.
I'm still gathering all of the data, but so far it's working.
Well, we like the sound of things that are working and understanding that there will be micro failures, and those are positions to pivot. It's how you look at it, is perspective. Now, once again, I still don't know much about what public relations spans, but I've gotten more of an idea and a better idea. And something you just mentioned, which was really great, is about upskilling and reskilling, because a lot of people have skills, the communication skills. They have the the I just said communication skills again, but they have these skills. So what are transferable skills for someone in another area that is reskilling and upskilling, you know? And what are those transferable skills that someone that is an established professional can bring to this public
Mhm.
relations world? And also, if you could get into it a little bit more and tell us what's the difference between press relations as and what is the difference between like internal communications. So I know that when I think press relations, I think about our press secretary, and I cannot recall her name right now. So pardon me, Madam Press Secretary, but I think about that, and then I think about like Key and Peele's, Luther and that character, So I think
Yeah.
about that, and then I think about the range of everything we do out in the world is communications. So if you could break it down for us a little bit more of like what PR looks like, especially in this digital world.
Hmm. Well, I'll start with that, and then I'll talk about the skill sets that tend to do, or the types of people that do well in this field. So most of what we train and people in is media relations. The reason being is that most clients, when they think about PR, they're thinking about getting into headlines so that they can add those
Mhm.
icons to their website, so they can share with
Oh,
investors. So that tends to be the most desirable form of PR when from the client side.
okay.
And like we talked about earlier, there's a lot that goes into that. So it's not just the placement. There's
Mhm.
weeks, sometimes months of messaging development and story development in order to get the journalist interested. So we call it right story, right people, right time. And the people is not only the audience, like the final audience, the audience you want to reach ultimately, but it's
Mhm.
also the journalist and whoever might be the gatekeeper to that audience.
And
So most
collaborators? Is that
well,
inclusive of collaborators or?
it could be an influencer,
Okay.
it could be someone like you, right? Like someone who has access to an audience. You are, a person publicists like to be, or perhaps would like to be in touch with. So
Okay.
yeah, you probably had no idea. But
Yeah.
our job is literally just to how can we get our clients into this audience? And sometimes that's through influencer outreach. Sometimes that's through journalist outreach. Sometimes that's through throwing our own events, right?
Okay.
The internal communication side is much more about reporting within the actual team. So reporting across team and also reporting with investors or partners and making sure that they're up to speed on what's going on within the company or the business, as well as across employees. And then it could be like coming up with like an internal mailer, an internal company newsletter. So the skills now that translate well into that are being able to connect the dots. So having a creative mind where you probably overanalyzing everything, uh, where you can say, oh, like here's this cool differentiating factor of
Mhm.
XYZ business. Now we have the three bullet points that are different. How does these three bullet points translate, or like how do we put them through the lens of what's relevant in the world right now? So timeliness is everything. Why does a journalist
Absolutely.
care right now? And so you're connecting the dots between people, between ideas, between like concepts, between trends. What are the trends that are happening? How can we create a new trend? It's a lot. It's like I like to call it a dance. It's like a free flow dance where there's no choreography, but having like some of like core moves will serve you in the long run so you can tap into your like resources whenever you need them.
So it's basically jazz. So I'm thinking the improvisation, having the basics, the tools, and then being able to be agile, be malleable as needed. Because the entire time you were talking, I was thinking about real world examples like Joe Rogan. Um, there's so much chatter, so much talk every single day. Now, when Neil Young decided, oh, guess what, Spotify? I'm going to go ahead and pull my music. That could have been a moment, and it was a moment, but it turned into a movement when he was supported
Mhm.
by Joni Mitchell, you know,
Mhm.
and then India RE, and then Brene Brown. And then I think about the things that are said and the things that are not said, and the information that gets leaked and the information that gets held tight, like with Rihanna. Like the fans, I'm not in the Navy, but I don't mess with them. Rihanna's fan Navy. I'm not in the Navy, but I do read a lot, and people call the fact that she was pregnant months ago So I think about, how publicists probably tried to stem that until they were ready to make a
Mhm.
reveal. So it's the
Mhm.
things that you say and the things that you don't say, the information that you leak appropriately and the information that you keep locked down tight. I'm
Yeah.
giving real world examples that are more pop based and more popular culture, but I also think about our world at large when speaking with a colleague earlier today who is from Ukraine, and now we are living in a world where our government is seeing how we support our um our global community in Ukraine, and the diplomatic relations going on between the United States and Russia, meaning our president Joe Biden, or Joe Byron, if anyone is been all over social media, take me out to dinner. Let me pull it back. And of course Vladimir Putin. And I think about at that level what that must mean, because it's diplomatic. So I think
Mhm.
about you know the press relations for an influencer, and I think about the press relations all the way through the high and top levels of government, of what information gets out and what information doesn't. So can you also talk to that about you starting a program like this, and being a novice, and being a starter publicist, going to junior publicist, and whatever the other levels are, senior, and then like where you could end up? Is that like press secretary? Is that president? Is that like Pinky in the Brain taking over the world? I don't like to
Yeah.
reference this person's name, but is that like spin Dr. Kardashian? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
what
I
what can you do? Where can you go with these skills?
I mean, you're bringing definitely something to I hadn't thought of so deeply, because there are so many startups and entrepreneurs who need PR that it's not that there's not depth to it, but it's certainly not like you're changing, like an entire country's perception with the type of work that we're doing, which
I
which I think that
I don't know.
there's a lot of value to, like, on a small level, like what a startup can say to the world is huge and very
Yes.
impactful. Um, like right now, we don't have any plans to kind of go into like a bigger public policy sphere. That said, I think that it's a building process. So the people going through our program, they might spend a year doing, smaller accounts with Spiral5, and then discover that they actually have an interest in going in more of a direction of public policy, or working in entertainment as a personal PR or personal publicist, which is a very different field with a lot of the same needs and skill sets. It's all about connecting the dots. It's all about dialogue. So again, it's like changing a dialogue, participating in a dialogue. Um, what you're talking also is about avoiding a dialogue, right? Like how do you step back and away from it, which isn't as much of what we go into, because to be honest, most of our clients just are excited to get any type of press, right?
Okay.
And we don't want to put them in a bad light by any means. But I feel like the need right now is
Mhm.
more for, as far as democratizing the space that we talk about, it's actually more for the solopreneur who has a really cool idea and doesn't has a maybe a little bit of budget, but doesn't have the time or big budget to start reaching out to entrepreneur.com or Well and Good, or whatever blog that she wants to be on. And so we
Got
sort
it.
of fill that gap for her. Um, that said, now I won't go into that said, there was today I had a very interesting call where
Tell
a very
us.
high level Tulsa political official was like interested in working with Spiral5. So it's funny that you bring
Woo!
that up, because I'm like, oh, I guess we got to start thinking politics.
Well,
But yeah.
that's what I see. I see the range, because back to what you just said, you are training solopreneurs. So when you're not attached to a corporation, you have access to more agency. Like you said, I mean, I quote the rapper T Bigelow or T Lo. I'm giving you a rap name now. We're not
I
an
love
agency. We create agency. You T Lo said it first. I'm
it.
I'm T Rex. Let me stop.
Love
I
it.
used to be. Let me stop.
Yeah.
But you said it
Okay.
first. When you create solopreneurs who are taking this, creating their own agency and can work with anyone, and you have this collective, then the sky is the limit. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised 5, 10
Exactly.
years, 15 years, a generation from now, that a Spiral5 graduate, participant of this great community and incubator is like on the world stage every single day and letting us know as press secretary, or ambassador, or wherever, whatever, because the sky's the limit, that
Mhm.
they are helping to mold. So
Yeah, I totally
Mhm.
get what you're getting. I get where you're going with this because, and that is something I've thought about a lot. And I will say, I didn't wake up one morning and was like, I'm going to democratize PR. But as I started creating it, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Because anytime you tap into talent that's been under resourced, or you haven't tapped into before, you're going to get new ideas and fresh perspectives,
Mhm.
and just a diverse pool.
Implementations.
Yes, new ways to execute new systems. And so
Mhm.
who's to say that like, not that there's anything wrong with big PR agencies,
Mhm.
but just by nature, they can't, they're more homogenous, right? So they need everyone to kind of be
That's the
doing
exact
their
word.
components. We're not here, like the people in our program, they are almost working under us. They are actually contractors of Spiral5, but it's so they're working with our clients on different levels. But we're encouraging them to develop relationships with their own clients so that after the year they can move on and build their businesses on their own. So yeah, I get where you're going, and I like that. And if one of our starter publicists becomes like the press secretary in 10 years, like that would be super incredible.
You heard
And a
it here
great
first. You
market.
heard it here first. T Law said it. T Lo. Actually, let me stop. Let me stop
T-Glow.
truncating. Let me stop truncating.
T-Glow
T
is
Bigelow.
yeah,
Okay, you heard a Fricka Fricka
T-Glow.
remix. You heard it here first, because I mean, why not? And that's the thing. I'm a
Yeah.
builder. I'm a trained as a software engineer, and I've always been a builder. Like, when I see stuff, I just start to create. My hands create. I type. I write. I don't use code as my main medium to build. I just like to write and create. And I think about the fact that I'll create a product, and I think it has one use. I think it has one purpose, and that you put it in the hands of other people, and it morphs and it changes and it pivots and it becomes something more robust once people get a chance to dream, ideate, and all of that. So, I mean, I'm excited about the future of your starter publicists, your publicisters, your publicister friends. Thank you again, Kashana, for putting that in the chat, and about where you can go. So, what is next for you? What is next for your graduates? Do you have an upcoming cohort? How can we hire the starter publicist or junior publicist to senior publicist? How could someone like me, who is not really interested in the title of influencer but content creator, how can I get more of my voice out there? Or someone like I'm trying to democratize content creation, especially on this powerful platform, LinkedIn. I love you. So I always want people to create, because everyone has a perspective to share. So how can someone like me, or someone else in the audience, and someone that is not here right now in this live, but that will watch this later on, how can we get in contact with Spiral5 and the publicists in this wonderful incubator and collective?
Yes, great questions. Okay, so the next cohort will launch, I don't know yet, probably April. So
Okay.
that's kind of like a moving target, but it's going to be in the spring. And what they can do is go to our website, to the incubator tab. So it's spiral5.com/incubator, and click on apply, and they can apply it on a rolling basis. So we'll have them on file for when we launch our next incubator cohort. For potential clients who are looking for affordable PR support, they can go to spiral5.com/hire. Yeah, that's fancy. Cool.
I'm quick with the buttons.
That right here.
And I'm throwing it in the chat for everyone. So, I like how you pointed. Yeah, it made me think of a
Yeah,
YouTube video. Like,
I
click
know.
here, click
Click
here.
follow, dance. Yeah.
Oh, no,
Um,
no, don't give it away. I have something at the end that does that. But thank you for
oh, okay.
narrating.
All you. I don't need to do that. So yeah, they can. We accept client referrals at any point on a rolling basis, and then we'll connect you to someone who could be a good fit.
Okay. So, I mean, we're
Mhm.
not done yet, but this has been so illuminating. I've learned so much about public relations. I mean, I don't I had to inject some Rihanna because that's so exciting, and so Joe Rogan, the pop, but like, where do you see yourself in doing this? Like, you mentioned that you are a publicist, you're still a working publicist. So what is it that you're doing on a day-to-day basis when not managing the cooperative and incubator of Spiral5? Like, how does
Mhm.
someone get in contact with you? And everyone, I will say this: reach out to the speakers, especially this fantastic speaker. And I'll get into that also, but like, how does someone reach out to you about your skill set or collaborating as well? Like, what are you up to? You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, so I still work on several of our clients. So you can think of it as an agency with multiple levels. So there are clients that I will personally work with, and
Mhm,
then there are clients that will go to our senior publicists, and they kind of handle that on their own.
mhm,
And then there are the starter publicists. So I work with a lot of clients in innovation, arts, culture. A lot. I don't know
mhm.
if you're familiar with like the psychedelics research and medicine space, but I have several clients in that world, which
Yes,
is
because I
super.
read your website.
Yeah, see, you did your homework. Yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a lot in that, and it's a fun space to be in. So I'm pretty busy right now. I mean, I'm managing several clients, bringing the incubator on board, getting the new cohort started and off to the races with their own clients. Sales calls every day. But yeah, I mean, most of what I'm doing is plugging clients into the media, coming up with headlines, figuring out creative story angles and news items that can kind of help them get the exposure that they really want. And we're just going to keep building that. We're going to keep growing.
You heard it first. The fact that this busy woman, this unfiltered since 19
89.
I know they have to do the research too and go on your website. Like, I
I
can't
see.
give them everything,
Okay,
since
fair.
1989. The fact that you took the time today to speak with me and to speak with our audience and everyone that's going to watch this after the fact. I thank you so very much for your generosity, for your courtesy, for your information. And as always, I implore people to reach out to speakers. Teresa Bigelow here on LinkedIn, this powerful platform. I always say that you should be connecting on. Please be gracious. Please be courteous when you do reach out to her. You heard the woman. She's busy. She is managing. She is puppet mastering. Taking over the world, one article at a time, one press um release
Press
at a time. So please be
release.
courteous when
Yeah.
you reach out to her and try to connect with her. And we want you to connect here. We hope that everyone got what they needed from this evening's chat. So I thank you so very much, Teresa, for being available, accessible, generous, and letting us know about Spiral5 and how you have affected change and implemented change and provided purpose in your community. So is there anything you want to say to me or to the audience before we go? Because I like to end on time.
I know you're so punctual and I love it. I think that's it. I just this was fun. Thank you for having me. And anyone's welcome to also reach out to me on email. It's Teresa, no H, at spiral5.com. So,
You could have told me that. I could have had it in the captions, threw it on the screen, but it's okay. It's all right,
no,
people. You had to be here, so you got to listen. You heard her. I can't do everything for you, but I'll do
yeah.
as much as I can. I promise. And with that, I say bye-bye, everyone. Hope you had a wonderful Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. I'm going to go call my mommy now and let her know I was
Nice.
talking about her and people wished her happy birthday. So on that note, bye, everyone.
Bye, Ty.